Hi all, for our instructive game today, well, notable game today, we'll look at one of my over-the-board games in the Middlesex League from last Thursday. Quite a blunderful game, yes, instructive blunders I think. And it was against T.Joslin. We were playing at home at Muswell Hill against Ealing second team. I was on board 1, playing T.Joslin. So E4, and I ventured G6 kind of as an experimental system. I've been playing this a lot in bullet chess recently. It's kind of sometimes called the sniper system. You just set up this bishop on G7 as a kind of long distance sniper on the center square. It's been called other things. Charles Story has a DVD or book on it if you want to check out sniper stuff. I didn't play it properly, and we'll see why. So knight c3, we have c5. There's a few moves for white here to support d4 or move the d pawn forward, not to d6, to d5. So knight f3, d5, d takes, bishop e3. He actually chose bishop e3, and here I played knight c6 actually. The usual move is actually queen a5, and already this is kind of interesting to take note of. It's a very direct thing to line your pieces to the opponent's king here, and it seems, well, maybe because the bishop's deployed there, it doesn't really want to go back to d2, and we get lines like this. For example, knight f3, knight f6, which threatens knight takes e4 using the pin. So say queen d2, and now provocative knight c6, and perhaps this is why I rejected it. I think, what is the whole point here? There's actually a subtle point in this variation where if you provoke d5, you can play knight b4 here, which is annoying. And it's annoying because if a3 now, can you see what black can play in this position? If I give you 5 seconds. Okay, black doesn't go back with the knight, but instead knight takes e4. It's very annoying. We've got that pin on the rook anyway here. And if it takes, we can play knight takes c2 using the pin, hitting the rook, and this will be nice for black, this position. And even if white does protect this rook with a move like bishop e2, it's still interesting to play knight takes e4. This position is potentially quite interesting to play. It seems the engine didn't mind this position much. Actually, slight advantage maybe even to black. Better might be to delay taking the knight and taking on c5. So anyway, that's triggered in my mind that actually this is the right way to play this. Yes, I should get Charles Story's DVD. I'm sure he's mentioned that. So basically, instead of knight c6 here, queen a5. It seems a bit audacious because it can be unpinned, but in conjunction with knight f6 and knight c6 and knight b4, you get some tactical fireworks potentially in this line. So anyway, knight c6 was played, and my opponent took on c5 here. He took on c5. We're very rare opening territory now, where black's basically, I've just gambled to the pawn for nebulous compensation. He supports wisely his centre. I castle, bishop c4, b6. And I am treating this like some sort of weird and wonderful gambit. And I'm wondering myself, I haven't actually played this over the board much at all before this game. I'm wondering myself, how do I actually get any compensation here for the gambit? Now b6 is my attempt at compensation, because here I don't recapture. I play actually e6, and I've got an idea that because the lock and key has been lifted off my d pawn, I want to play for d5 and open up the e file. Now my opponent played a bit of a timid move here, a3. I think simply better is knight ge2, just to support the d5 square, the d4 square rather, in case of d5, and then black might be threatening d4. But instead this a3, and already now black might actually have something now after d5. Because after ed, can you see what black can play here, which is actually quite good now for black. If I give you 5 seconds, what would you play in this position? Starting from now. Okay, not e takes, but knight takes, because now after knight takes. Can you see what black has? Okay, queen h4 check, loose piece. They fall off if you can find the double attacks. And it leaves black with a great position. I've got a great position now. Okay, he's got this forcing with knight c7. And here I can actually almost put white away with accurate play, which I didn't. Which is why I'm describing this as a rather blunderful game, to be honest. I liked the look of rook b8 at the time for certain reasons. But in fact, in this position, bishop takes b2 is fairly strong. If knight takes, then bishop c3 check, and you see the bishop and queen working together. And if white attempts to blunt the queen here with queen d3, then check is quite good. Say here, this position is just very good for black. And if king f1, take this rook. And the point is here that this knight is kind of a bit awkwardly trapped in this line. Bishop a6, knight tries to come out, taking here, check, a takes b6, and we have this padlock for the knight basically, and the bishop's actually a really good here as well. And so knight e2, bishop e5, we've still got this lock on the knight. We're going to eliminate this knight. Now I didn't see this line, and it's, of course, it's fantastic. The knight's going to be munched soon, whatever happens. So yeah, fantastically simple line there, just with bishop takes b2. Okay, it takes some reasonably good calculation. I thought rook b8 was quite attractive though, for a different reason, and again went into what I liked. B takes a7 was played. Best was queen e2, and then that really tasked black. But this is what I like now. B takes a7, because now I play knight takes a7. And I've still got this rather crushing idea of playing bishop c3 check. So we have after bishop takes a7, rook takes b2. I'm a piece down temporarily, but I've got bishop c3 check now on the cards. As well as other stuff. Rook takes c2 and bishop c3. So he gives back the piece with knight e2. I take on c7, bishop d4. And here it is a really crushing position actually. Either with what was played technically or another move, just simply pin the bishop. Simple. Pinning the bishop. Yeah. For some reason I was concerned about losing both rooks here, but this position isn't good for white. Even if I lose both rooks, it's for a bishop there. I've got two bishops and the queen against the two rooks and the knight. Material advantage, much better for black winning, really. So yeah, that would be absolutely dead simple. Yeah. Yeah, it's very embarrassing when you check a game with an engine, I've got to say afterwards, even an over the ball game. But this is actually seen by the engines as a good move as well, to be fair. Bishop takes. For queen takes, I didn't really realise any possibility of white escaping here. Unfortunately, it plays an ingenious system of defence here. After queen d1, queen c4, I thought the game's going to be over soon on one wrong move. For example, if he plays rook here, I play check, and then I'm going to play taking, and that's end of game, right? But my opponent ingeniously rather defends this position to my increasing regret. Fantastic defensive move in the circumstance. Can you see what white plays? Because I thought this was kind of over as well. I'm going to come up with bishop a6, and surely this is it. But the opponent plays, guess what? If I give you 5 seconds. Rook f1. Now really, okay, there's this lateral defence, and as though the king's going to manually crawl over here. But actually, really I should still pile on the pressure. The right move here is bishop a6. The queen is well placed here on c4. Doesn't need to be anywhere else. And in this line, on rook f2, well actually the queen can kind of consider moving now. Yeah, I'll take that back. Queen c5 now, just to completely sit on white's position. So if rook c1, queen e3 is going to be good, sitting on white. And if king f1, the thing is, once the king reaches g1, there's another pin. Rook c8 really just dominates the position here. There's no rook c1 now because of the pin. I just want to make absolutely sure of what I've just said to you, though. On rook c1 here, instead of king f1, I believe the move would be queen e3. Nope. No, there's another ingenious resource. I'm glad I checked this. Forget queen e3. No, much stronger here. There's a much stronger move. Can you see? If I give you 5 seconds. Yeah, I've given a clue here. So if queen takes c1. If rook takes, then there's queen g1 check. Now here, there's rook d8 check. And here we can just take the queen. So yeah. It's a disaster zone. This whole setup should be easily crushable. Easily, this position. It's a magnificent position here of the queen c5. Okay, I'm going to turn that off for a moment. I've got stored analysis notes as well, so we'll just go with those for the moment now. Queen c5. So there's no rook c1. Black's got an absolutely glorious position, but somehow I pursued. I'm starting to throw away my position somewhat, because actually after rook f1, I play this check, going after a measly pawn, which I was convinced if I just get bishop a6, then I'm justified anyway in taking this pawn. So we have rook f2, queen h5, and it's still a really good position, of course. a4, queen a5 check. King f1, and I finally play bishop a6 now. But king g1, it's as if, you know, white's king has kind of escaped. So yeah, and if we just before the king, we go into the king escape routine. So the point is here, instead of queen h4 check, in this position, bishop a6 is really good, yeah, because of this as mentioned. And also, let's have a look at something else. King f1, we do get the line where black dominates with rook c8. So there's no rook c1. And if king g3, here, there's rook takes e2. So that's why, yeah, the queen was well placed over here. So yeah, I've gone into this check line. Now let's go. The queen taking that pawn. And I've rather let white off now. Check. But still, bishop a6 looks good. King g1. Rook d8. And again, I thought this was good enough, because basically I'm going to get both my rooks to the 7th rank. And they should be good. Queen e1, hitting my queen though. Quite resourceful. Queen c5, creating a pin. Now we have queen c3. And there's a tactical idea here which is really neat. So if you ever get this sort of position in your own games, take a note of this tactical idea. Getting 2 rooks to the 7th was a nice dream, but sometimes you've got to do that dream emphatically, using amazing tactical resources. It was the dream, and it seems to be squished with the move queen c3, hitting my queen and rook. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? What am I doing? I'm being forced onto a retreat. And I played a move queen b6, which seems sensible enough, still keeping some prospects. But there's a crushing blow that is available in this position. Can you see what black can do here if I give you 5 seconds, starting from now? Okay, queen sack, queen takes f2 is possible. King takes here, and now rook dd2. And there's beautiful coordination on the escape routes of the king here. So say a token move, then white's like just getting mated like this. And to actually stop this mate, white has to give up the queen. There's no two ways about it. Any rook move doesn't actually help here. Say instead of a5, say this ridiculous move. Well, then there's mating there on the back row anyway. Any rook move, so that doesn't help. Well, any rook move, we're just getting this mating scheme. If queen c6 attacking the bishop again, it doesn't really help. We just get the mating scheme by force, mate. Yeah, I know it's a simple tactic. Queen sack. Yeah, it would refute this whole construction of defense. Anyway, I play an inferior move, queen b6. I'm not kicking the boot in. Once the Grandmaster John Nunn, he gave a lecture to a group of juniors and said about kicking, the boot in, and this is not kicking the boot in. I'm letting my opponent systematically escape here. a5. I play queen b8. Okay, and there's a nice idea of taking, if I can get it, take here, but that's squashed. Knight f4. And he's also now looking at the rook. So things are getting even worse now. Check. And he's really just escaped. Now I'm just left with trying to coordinate on the back row without any guarantee now against the king. So I play rook d1. But now white has his own threats after rook b2. He's threatening not just my queen, potentially this check mating. So I'm forced now to play the check. And yes, I'm looking at queen f5. If the king goes over here, then that's not good there. And over here is not too clever either. But of course the king comes around this way. King f2. And I'm thinking, surely I could have done more with the position earlier. Seriously, why have I got this position? Why? I'm only a pawn up. King is still alive, running around the board. Okay, so I play check, but I find a way that I'm thinking, well, if I can get the queens off and I can go after this pawn, how would he defend that pawn? So it'll be 2 pawns up. And actually, yeah, here I think the best move is actually knight e2. But he didn't play that. He took on e1, which I think is inferior. And now instead of moving the king back, after all this escaping, resourceful escaping, maybe under increasing time pressure, the last 15 minutes, there's an added 15 minutes, we're in that zone. He plays a gigantic blunder here, instead of moving the king back. We have king d4, and I noticed, to my relief, despite fluffing up the entire game up till now, black can do what in this position after king d4? I hope you can see. If I give you 5 seconds. Yes, e5, winning the knight. And yes, even I can take it from here now, a piece up. I don't mind this position. I can take it from here. So it's fairly over. I'm just going to queen actually my h pawn and sack if needed to get rid of the a pawn. So what if I sack? And here white resigned. Yes. If there's anything about this game, sometimes, yeah, kicking the boot in is a nice way to end the game, even just from an aesthetic perspective. To invest the extra time, maybe it's worth it from an aesthetic perspective. Because I was thinking, oh, this isn't a nice, neat game to show you on YouTube, unfortunately, but it requires a bit more work. But as Arnold Schwarzenegger has said on some of his YouTube videos when he was training his muscles, every exercise you do, he had a goal, yeah. And instead of him not having a smile on the face, he always had a smile on his face. If you put the work in at the board and think you're going to create something of aesthetic beauty, or are you just going to plod along during the game, content with a small advantage, hoping you'll win? I had the sort of game where I haven't got anything aesthetically nice to show you, only behind the scenes that were picked up with the engines. Of course, it's effortless for engines, but as humans, if we want to create something of great beauty, you need to find that the beautiful killer blows. And unfortunately, I let them slip, and it was only my opponent's blunder in severe time pressure that made it easier again to win this game. Okay, but there it is. That's reality. That's the harshness of reality. Sometimes you know, you play an interesting game to some extent, and I hope there were some interesting points in this game tactically. At least from the opening point of view, I picked up some opening theory myself with the live book, the provocative, the knights, and that line early on. We have that tactic with the two rooks and bishop working together behind the scenes, and we have some other tactical ideas behind the scenes. Which show that white's visibly helpless, but you've really got to kick the boot in to really not let the opponent escape sometimes. Okay, so I hope you got something from that. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.